Hello and welcome to Analysis with me, John Rees. A couple of weeks ago, the military-backed Egyptian government declared the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist group after blaming it for a deadly attack on police headquarters. After that, thousands of Brotherhood supporters have been arrested in a crackdown amidst vows that the protest will continue anyway. The Deputy Egyptian Prime Minister said that the government will give the authorities more power to crack down on the Brotherhood, and it threatened that those who belonged to the group, financed it or promoted its activities would face punishment. The crackdown is now spreading well beyond supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood. Activists central to the original revolution that overthrew Mubarak and journalists are now being targeted. So, is the situation in Egypt dangerously out of control? What will be the repercussions of designating the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organisation? And which are the reasons that lie behind the clampdown on media and the arrest of foreign journalists? To discuss this topic, we invited Mohammed Sudan, the Foreign Relations Secretary of the Freedom and Justice Party, Sabah Al-Mukhtar, Chairman of the Arab Lawyers Association, Professor John Dugard, former UN Human Rights Special Rapporteur, and Tayyab Ali, criminal human rights lawyer. And on Skype from Qatar is Nadia El Magd, an Al Jazeera Egyptian journalist. But before we get into discussion, let's have a look at this report.
As she walked along Cairo's landmark Usra al-Nil Bridge with her son, Heba said she hoped that 2014 would bring reconciliation and an end to the violence.
God willing, there will be stability and all of the problems will pass. And I am calling on all of the young people to stop the violence. Because of course, it's very difficult to bear all of these young people who are being lost. It's difficult for any mother for her child to be lost so easily. I pray to God that things will get easier and pass in peace.
Heba's hopes for 2014 come after a tumultuous year that began with Egypt's opposition rallying against President Morsi on the second anniversary of the 2011 uprising that ousted President Hosni Mubarak. A year on, and the country's first elected president has been removed by the military, and Egypt has experienced its worst civil strife in its recent history. Last Friday, 10 deaths were recorded in the latest incident in recent weeks that has seen hundreds of the ousted president's supporters killed by security forces, and where lethal attacks on soldiers and police have now become commonplace. Those opposed to the army's overthrow of President Morsi have been holding daily demonstrations in Cairo and in other cities ever since the army-backed government declared the Brotherhood a terrorist group last month. The Muslim Brotherhood were blamed by government officials for a suicide bomb attack on a police station that killed 16 people last week, although the group condemned the attack and it was claimed by a North Sinai-based jihadist group. Critics of the government say its war on terror is being used to stifle its opponents, and human rights advocates point to a return to the repressive policies of Mubarak's time. In what is seen as further evidence of Egypt's declining civil liberties, the top prosecutor Hisham Barakat ordered 5 people, including 4 journalists working for Al Jazeera English, to be held for 15 days. The journalists are accused of belonging to the Muslim Brotherhood and setting up a media network with the aim of tarnishing Egypt's image abroad and harming its political position. Globally, there has been general condemnation of these arrests.
We strongly condemn the arrests by the Egyptian authorities of the Al Jazeera channel employees. This proves and illustrates the continuation of the policy of arrests and raids by the interim government that came to power in July, by targeting journalists and closing a large number of media outlets that the government considers are not representing the political or editorial line that should be followed according to the views of the Egyptian government.
Since the military overthrew Morsi in July, the army-backed authorities' fierce crackdown on dissent has mostly targeted Morsi's Islamist supporters, but recently has widened to include members of the secular activist movement as well. On Sunday, 12 prominent Egyptian dissidents were given 1-year suspended jail terms, accused of attacking the campaign headquarters of defeated presidential candidate Ahmed Shafiq during the 2012 elections. Mona Saif told Reuters TV after the verdict was announced that she believed the ruling was political.
We were given a 1-year suspended sentence. The case has 12 defendants, even though there isn't evidence or witnesses to prove that any of these defendants are guilty.
12 months of political and economic turmoil has driven away foreign investors and tourists, and has left Egypt teetering on the edge of bankruptcy and instability. The interim government says that the surest way to get the country back on track is a political roadmap that will see a referendum and a new constitution in mid-January, followed closely by presidential and parliamentary elections. But with the third anniversary of the 2011 uprising that ousted Mubarak approaching, the stark contrast between the high hopes of the first revolution and today's reality has left many disillusioned and less hopeful for its future.
Mohammed, this looks like a considerable ratcheting up of the level of repression. Is that how you see it?
Actually, I'm seeing that this is the coup authority. They are trying to do something to prove to the international community that they are illegal or something like this, and to issue a decision or law like this when they consider that the Muslim Brotherhood are a terrorist organization. I think that they are afraid from all the uprising people, including the Muslim Brotherhood. They thought that the Muslim Brotherhood are moving the people, mobilizing the people in the street, but the reality is not. The reality is now the majority of the Egyptian people uprise against this kind of coup, this kind of authority of coup, and let us say that how they accept to work under the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood for 1 year as a Ministry of Interior, as the Ministry of Defense, or all the SCAF as well. They are working under the leadership of Dr. Morsi, the president, and he's one of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. How they accept to work for 1 year, and they consider them right now as a terrorist organization. And I want to add that the really terrorist is the one or the people who killed the innocents, set in for 2,600 people in a few hours. They killed almost now 6,000 people in the street, the protesting people. The terrorists who are arresting the people, especially the high-class people or the others people, just to arrest the small girls.
Okay.
To
well,
give them.
Let me just bring Sab in a bit here, because it looks as if not only is the repression deepening against the Brotherhood in the ways that both the package and Mohammed have described it, but it's also widening, because Mona Seif that we saw in that thing, she would probably be a critic of the Muslim Brotherhood, and yet now many of the original activists from the 25th of January revolution are being targeted as well. Is that right, do you think?
That's absolutely correct. I think the liberal movement in Egypt, whether they were the Nasserist or the leftist or the communist, and all the liberal movements, because they lost the elections, they became bad losers, and they teamed up with the army against the Brotherhood, regardless of what one thinks of the Brotherhood. But at the end of the day, those people who have been for the last half a century talking to us about democracy and freedom and rule of law, suddenly they turn up and join the army, there is no difference between what's happening at the moment and what was under Mubarak, if not worse. And further, this is the first time in Egypt that the government begins actually to target a whole section of the society. Even when one looks at Nasser's time or Mubarak's time, the Brotherhood used to be put in prison, but it was individuals. You don't make the movement. And now they are talking about the Muslim Brotherhood as if you can actually identify who is a Muslim Brotherhood, who is not. This woman who we've just seen walking on the bridge, this woman in the street, she would be treated as a Muslim Brotherhood, despite the fact that she might not be. And as my friend said, there are many people who are against what's happening from principally the same point which they rose against Mubarak, i.e. this deep state which is controlling the state, the police state. They want to stop that one.
John, I mean, this looks like, even compared to the Mubarak era, as if the kind of rule of law is out the window here. I mean, the court processes are laughable, are they not?
Yes, well, our concern in bringing an application to the International Criminal Court,
which you've just done recently,
yes, is to secure impartial and fair justice. We have doubts about the ability and willingness of the military regime of Egypt to conduct fair criminal prosecutions, or in particular to investigate the actions of the military itself. And so for that reason, today we have announced that we are bringing a case, or we have applied to the International Criminal Court for it to conduct investigations.
And would that include the whole question of civilian activists being brought before military courts, because that's been a long-standing, issue in the Egyptian revolution?
Well, we have asked the International Criminal Court to investigate the commission of crimes against humanity, which is defined in the Rome Statute as embracing a number of acts which occur in a widespread and systematic manner. And our request is that the situation in Egypt as a whole should be investigated, so that the International Criminal Court should look at all criminal actions that have occurred in Egypt since the overthrow of the Morsi government, primarily the acts committed by the military, but also acts committed by other groups.
Tayyip, let me just ask you a little bit about this question of the military trials, because some of the activists arrested this week, or actually sentenced in court without actually being present, are long-standing opponents of the whole business of military trials. And there are many different forms of repression, some much more direct and bloody, as Mohammed has been saying. But this is a kind of bellwether issue in the Egyptian revolution. So what do you make of it?
Well, as John said, we've asked the International Criminal Court to investigate crimes against humanity, and the evidence that we've supplied the International Criminal Court includes evidence of repression against an identifiable group. And originally, the Egyptian military regime were speaking about the Morsi or Islamist groups that they were cracking down on. But what we see now very clearly is that that was just a cover, a front, if you like, in order for the military regime to appear to take control of the country. And now it doesn't matter who the person is. If you challenge the authority of the military regime and you are in favor of a pro-democratic process, then you can find yourself on the other side of that repression. And so these military trials and the trials that we're seeing played out before us are just further examples of the repressive treatment by the military regime.
Okay, let me bring Nadia in. Nadia, we're supposed to be coming up to a referendum on a new constitution in Egypt. Are there any chances whatsoever of this being a fair referendum under these kind of conditions?
I don't think so at all. I really think that fair and this kind of called constitution don't really can't be in the same sentence, or sort of mutually exclusive. First of all, the constitution was built on a completely illegal situation, on a military coup situation. So what is based on wrong is definitely by definition is wrong. It's based on a lot of bloodshed by Egyptians, unfortunately, as well as so many arrests and stuff, and by unelected committee. It's all a reward to them for sort of bringing this coup. It's very different from the elected committee that wrote the 2012 constitution. So from this perspective, even from the beginning, it's illegitimate and illegal, as well as the whole, part of the so-called constitution. They said that it's sort of it's against any kind of hate speech or discrimination or exclusion, which is exactly what has been going on the ground since the coup on July 3rd. And also, all of these killings are they are really rushing to sort of to try to again to show to the international world or circles that they have legitimacy. They don't. And now just today, the so-called interim president was also not elected, was just chosen by the coup leader Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, just issued a very dangerous presidential decree saying that now people can vote at any polling station, this is very much makes it very easy, and it shows the intention of forging the elections, because usually you go to your polling station.
Yeah, Nadia, thank me. Let me just put that issue, the point that you just raised there to Mohammed. I mean, there are some quite remarkable things happening on a daily basis. I mean, what Nadia's just said about being able to vote in any polling station, well, that's an invitation to electoral fraud. But also there was a story this morning about one of the senior executives of Nile TV being dismissed for programming something about the Morsi years, a 7-minute package. I mean, these are quite remarkable events, aren't they?
Actually, this coup authority, they try to squeeze anything just to make it this like a legitimate road. They know that since they started, they are against the legitimacy. They know that most of the international community are not satisfied about this. Some of them are keep silent, but only 5 countries or 4 countries as well, they are supporting them. And they try to tell the international community that we are right and we are being supported with the majority of the Egyptian people. Whatever they are going to do, that the reality of what's going on in the ground in Egypt is against law, is against the benefits of the Egyptian people. But whatever they do, those groups are. They stole already the will of the Egyptian people. If they go to the polling station, who will go? A lot of the administration will be in the front of the polling station. We know that they have a lot of private media and official media, but the history and the background of the Egyptian people, that those people are lying. Always they are lying. Since the 25th of January revolution, they were always lying. They don't say the truth.
Okay, let me just put one more question to John before we go to the break. I mean, in these circumstances, and Mohammed's referred to it, there's been really quite a sort of reticence on the part of other powers to speak out about what to many people is obviously a coup. Do you hope that the court case will begin to open up that debate on the international scale?
Well, the court case will open this issue up immediately, because the declaration has been submitted to the International Criminal Court by the lawful government of Egypt, which we claim is the Morsi government, which was a democratically elected government, and the government which is still recognized by the international community. The African Union has suspended the military regime from participation in the affairs of the African Union, which is a clear indication that as far as the African Union is concerned, the Morsi government is still the lawful government of Egypt. Okay. And other states have not taken a clear position, so it's very easy to argue that the Morsi government remains the lawful government of Egypt.
Okay. Now, did you think that a case such as this, an internationally, public case, will make any difference to the political process? Will it cause the government difficulties in Egypt?
Sorry, say again.
Would that international criminal case, court case, would that make any difficulties for the government in Egypt, or will they just brush it off?
I think they will try to brush it off, but I think they are concerned, even if they don't show it, about the lack of international recognition of them, about international pressure, about international embarrassment, and revealing, calling off all of their bluffs and lies, and sort of, not really recognizing their legitimacy. And I think this is very important for them, because I really think this whole fiasco, or this whole farce of the constitution and the elections, it's more like trying to sort of to send messages to the outside world more than Egypt. So actually, I think it's important political and legal tool in that matter.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, that brings us to the close of the first half of the programme. But do rejoin us after the break, where we'll be looking at some of the social and economic dimensions of the crisis in Egypt.